kind of...
You can always put it against the crutches.
I was going to say, I might do a little lean back. And it's like, it's kind of angles and it's just getting less of the floor.
Oh, nice.
Okay, fingers crossed. Yeah. A good chunk of it was the floor, which is, you know, fine.
Oh, I'm glad that you fixed it. I know how you got diagnosed. Like, you can always tell me, like, you were diagnosed.
How does it happen?
And maybe we should say your diagnosis first.
Oh, yes. Hypermobile EDS.
We both have
Danlos
Ehlers Danlos
Syndrome. So much fun. So like I went to White Cross that day and got an x-ray and it wasn't like broken, so then I got an ultrasound and they're like, yep, no, it's all good, all fine. And then within days, the pain moved from here to my arm. And then I could not move my arm, like I couldn't lift my arm, I couldn't reach out, I just could not use my arm at all. It was so painful. Now, like very slight, I always get this word messed up. It looks like tendinopathy, but I know that's not how you say it. Tenopathy? Something like that?
Probably, that sounds professional.
One of those. It's tendinitis of sort. I found that in my supraspinatus tendon, but it was very minor, and they also said that I had very minor bursitis in my shoulder. It's just like general, like, you know, overuse stuff.
So some of the like pain and the injury you've had at the moment, like with the splint and stuff, could be dating back to your original injury that you got diagnosed.
Literally. And then that was when my doctor was like, I wonder whether it's this thing called EDS.
And she sent you to Jeremy, didn't she? Because Jeremy has had a lot to do with a rheumatologist who's very well known for treating EDS in New Zealand. So he's got some good info on it, and he was basically like,
and I went and I had like, he's pulling at every area of my body, skin's been pulled, testing how much I can move. And then when he saw like my atrophic scarring, that was when he was like, oh yeah, this is the best. Pause for dramatic effect. He told me that a regular person could have an injury that maybe takes like 6 months to heal, but because of like the low collagen and the way that our joints and muscles and stuff all are, it's like, yeah, your injury could take like 2 to 3 years to come right, as opposed to a typical person with like a 6-month injury timeline.
Like the healing is so long.
What I'm saying is that I don't know anyone who's diagnosed with EDS who's not really smart, so we're all really smart and intellectual as well. What we lack in connective tissue, we make up for
in brain power.
In brain power, exactly. I think like the awareness of like what my body can do has been hard, because before all of this, I was definitely one of those people who could like do anything, try anything, like and knowing or recognizing now that while sometimes I feel like I can still do things, I just know that for longevity purposes, I have to dial back. I think that's been really hard, is learning that like whilst yes, I probably could do these things, it's just if I want to keep my body healthy or healthy as it can be for the longest time possible, I have to stop doing certain things, and I think that has been really hard. I think because I feel somewhat able-bodied, well, I mean, I am able-bodied for the most part. I'm just able-bodied within reason and within limits, but I find that even validating my own illness can be hard sometimes, because there is too many people outside of your own world that would be like, oh, you don't have anything wrong because you do this, and if you exercise, you can't have chronic pain, and if you, I don't know, walk, then you must not have any joint issues or whatever.
And there's just a lot of misconceptions, which is why it's good to like obviously talk about this stuff and like make it known to people, like why it's important that you not judge a book by its cover and just hear people out. But I think it's also like due to the fact that EDS is so rare, like they think the hypermobile type of EDS, which we probably have, is like the most common type. You've got a 1 in 5,000 chance of having that. So pretty rare if we consider like diabetes or something. 1 in 10 people have diabetes. only like 1 in 5,000 people who might have hypomobile EDS, and they think maybe more. But then I first got diagnosed with classical actually, and that's only 1 in 20,000 people who got that. So it's like, there could only be a few of us in the country. You know what I mean? Different systems of the body that are showing symptoms, but it's all linked, and they don't think to link it because everyone's so specialised in their specialty and what they think is not.
That is a really, really good point.
And so I feel like when you've had this like medical gaslighting from people being like, oh, it's just anxiety, or it's just this, or it's just that, it's something manageable, it's not visible, like you're fine, and you're really struggling internally, that can be just a awful feeling. And then I think that's where gaslighting yourself can start coming in. Because then it's like you're used to hearing it from doctors, you're used to being told you just need to tough it up and get over it.
Just pain is pain. Did you know that? Did you know that?
Oh,
did you know that pain? You just gotta wait it out. Have you tried meditating?
Oh my god. Quote from like a horrific emergency room doctor that we had to deal with once when we used to went to the emergency room.
After extreme chronic pain for about 12 hours of my day.
And you've like torn your vertebra and stuff as well on your neck. Like that seemed to be legit to me. I don't know why you were so interested.
But yeah, it's what you said about like connecting things. I think had all of my doctors from like childhood and the amount of issues I had in high school with my body, like my joints and my muscles and all of that, had somebody been able to link all of that at the time, maybe I would have saved myself so much more pain in the future, because we would have been able to go, okay, this one, yep, and this one, yep, and this one, like, okay, they're all because of EDS. I was in high school and I was doing athletics and cross country and whatever. I had shin splints like consistently the entire time, could never get rid of them because I have incredibly flat feet. And what is flat feet also very common of? People that have EDS.
I actually have like super high arches. I don't know what's up with that. Like, I really didn't
know something. I'll like search it up on Google Scholar with relationship with EDS, like this and EDS. I want to know if it's been studied that it's something that comes from EDS. And I even found that because I have something called enamel hyperplasia on my teeth, which is like a terrible production of enamel, causing my teeth to be very like brittle and sensitive. And
because maybe we should explain like collagen is in your teeth, and collagen is the defective fiber that's not produced properly in people's bodies that have EDS. So if you've got faulty collagen, you can have faulty bones, faulty like organ tissue. You can have
scars don't form correctly.
Yeah, like the skin is impacted, the ligaments, even blood vessels. So there's heart conditions and stuff that you can get with it. I'm like, I think all my issues are due to EDS. Like, I would not have any issues.
If I didn't have EDS, all of these other issues wouldn't exist.
But yeah, and it's crazy that even down to your teeth and your enamel.
And like they've known that I've had that since I was like 7 or 8, because as soon as my adult teeth started growing in, there was the hyperplasia on my teeth. And it's not even like when I have hyperplasia, they said to me that usually people have it on like 1 or 2 of their back teeth, and I have it on every single tooth in my mouth. To the point where I actually got offered, or like the University of Auckland approached me once looking to study my teeth further because they were so interested in it being one of the worst cases of hyperplasia they'd ever seen.
It's crazy, but they look really slate now. Like,
they look slaying. I've got them done. But like, it's interesting that that is connected to EDS, and at the time I was just like, unlucky. They're always like, they looked at my family medical records, they wanted to know if anybody else had hyperplasia. They couldn't find anyone in my family with history of hyperplasia. They're telling my mom like, oh, maybe you had a fever when you were pregnant, maybe that's why that's happened. It's like nobody ever thought maybe it's this underlying issue.
And it's the same with my family, like, because no one in my family got diagnosed before me, and I was the first in my family to get diagnosed. And make sure that if there are any signs and symptoms, you catch them young, you catch it when it's like just starting out, because like I don't want to speak for people in my family, like I don't want to like put their private medical information out there, but yeah, no one was diagnosed before me, but there's definitely one part of the family tree where I can tell like that it probably came from, because there's just so many different issues that weren't like necessarily major for those people. I think I have it most severe in my family, but it was just all these little things that doctors kept on trying to explain away, and just being like,
diagnosis age of EDS is 32.
Yes, far out.
So that is
22
really
late.
late. That's like, it actually makes me sick to think that, because I'm 23 now for context, it makes me sick to think that I could live with this for another like 9 years and not know. Like,
And
the
that's the thing.
pain and suffering that it
Like
causes
you're
me now.
born with this, and so it's like you were born. They should have been able to pick this up, but they didn't because it's just not known about. There's not enough information.
I think that's another thing that is like a daunting experience, is like knowing that this doesn't go away. It's not like we're sick and something's gonna get fixed. It's like this is just what we have. That is just our body.
This is the proof of the pudding right here. Like she's just doing the splits, like just randomly.
You know,
in the
it's
middle
like
of the conversation.
it's knowing that like this is it, and I don't like, I scare myself sometimes with the word progressive, because I know that EDS is a progressive disorder.
Yeah.
So like it's not meant to get better over time. You know, I think that can be a scary thought as well.
Yeah.
But I hope that we're at the point where like there's going to be extreme advances in medical treatments for this. There is more studies coming out about EDS. If you're looking in the right places, there is stuff, but I mean, most of it is just about management, because there's nothing they can really do to treat it necessarily. It's just how can we manage it for all the people who have it.
Definitely, and I mean, you get into a sticky situation because at some level, it's like I don't want to be my disease, I don't want to be like my condition, but it is a part of me, it's part of my genetics, it's part of who I am.
Like everything that I am made up of, it is also made up of this.
On the ridges of the floor.
Okay. Oh yeah, genius. There's my blistered hand, everyone. Oh no.
Let's go, buddy.
Let's go. Okay. There's some strange, like, grate. But then, do we have the non-potable tap in our picture? Oh my god, we do.
I can sit in front of it.
And I'll sit in front of this.
It was like a crack's coming on. Oh! There we go.
I cannot do that. I don't know how you do
There
that.
she is.
Oh, it freaks me out.
What, the cracking?
Yeah.
My whole body cracks so much.
Like, even when I dislocate something and a doctor will try to put it in for me, I'm like, no, I
Yeah,
just
I'm
rather
like,
not crack it. Like,
Did you hear that?
yeah. Or
I got a lot.
I think that's Mike's going to be able to pick that up. I reckon just like later when I'm editing it
You'll
together,
hear
just
these
a
like
pop.
Yeah, after if I've worn this all day and I take it off at the end, it is like the most atrocious sound. It's like, just...
Oh man, because like literally if I put my knee out or something, I don't want to click it back in. So I'll just like walk around with a floppy knee, like with my leg hanging off my knee, like until it just wiggles its way back in.
I find with my knees, because in terms of dislocations, I, to my knowledge, have not dislocated anything that I haven't just been able to like crack.
Yeah.
You know? So I don't know if I've dislocated things. Maybe I have.
I reckon you have.
Maybe I probably have, but it's been like they've been able to just like slide back in somehow and it hasn't caused issues.
Because that was me before I got more severe dislocations, and then once I had proper severe ones and went to the doctors, I was like, oh, actually this has been happening for ages. Like
Yeah.
I didn't realise that was like maybe a subluxation, which is like just more minor, like it goes out but back in.
Yeah, straight
quickly.
away, right? Like, I reckon that's what my knees do, because I've obviously got, my patellas move a lot, but sometimes, like, I'll be on the couch and I'll go to, like, move my leg, but because I've got my leg in a position where my knee has, like, slid, I go to move my leg and, like, my knee doesn't move, but my leg does, and it is excruciating for, like, a split second, and I just have to go back to the place that I was in and be like, okay,
gonna be
let's
alright.
really slowly bend.
As you straighten your leg, and then it'll slide back into place. So it's quite interesting. Like sometimes you have to take it out of the joint more for it to go back in.
That
But
is interesting.
yeah, strange smell. You smelling that? Maybe it's the non-potable water.
Potable.
Would you explain to a layman what EDS is?
I always say it is, I mean, in terms of like hypermobile, I'll always say like, oh, it's a hypermobility disorder, which is like all kind of stemming from connective tissue
Yeah.
issues.
Yeah.
That's kind of the way I go at a very like basic thing. Sometimes I'll add in like, we don't, like, our production of collagen is really messed up. I feel like I'm usually met with, do you take collagen supplements? It's the first thing people always mention to me.
I was going to ask you about that.
Supplements?
I was like, myths you want to bust or like misconceptions?
You can't take collagen supplements to supplement for like our lack of production of collagen. Like, it's not.
If
like,
someone puts like some collagen on their skin, that's lovely, and that might give you better skin because it helps you produce collagen in your skin, which is like a component of it. But if you are literally born with a gene that causes defective collagen, you can't like
you can't take a
regrow
supplement.
your bones.
Yeah, that's not. It's not at all going to
regrow
work
your
like that.
organs. Like, it's not going to like go through and magically heal you. Like,
No. It's like, yeah, it's interesting. Like, I think most of the time when you're trying to explain it to someone who's never heard of it or doesn't know, it's hard because people want to be able to help you and people want to be able to offer you something that's going to help immediately. But obviously when people don't have like the full understanding of the way that it affects you, it's very like ignorant to say just take collagen, because you're like, well, obviously if I could just take collagen, I would just take it, and that would have been, you know. Sometimes I do want to say to people, like, do you not think I would have tried that?
It's hard because I think you're constantly put in these situations where you're slightly undermined, not necessarily their intention, like they're just trying to be nice, but you have a lot of like educational moments where you have a choice where it's like, okay, I could educate this person. Is it worth my time and effort right now to try explain this to them? And it's like, if people have really sincere intentions or they're a close friend or whatever, I don't take offense if they know something.
Yeah, I'll always explain it quite in detail to close friends.
It's good, yeah, it's good to explain to those people, but when it's just like strangers and they're like, oh, why don't you just take a little collagen supplement? Like, it's like, oh, bro, like, if you would have just thought about that for one more second, like, do you realize that there's doctors, like actual medical doctors, that would have prescribed that?
If that was the fix, like, I probably would have been on that already.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's like you have to choose whether you hit them with the, why would you ask that? Or, what an interesting question to ask. Yeah. Like, do you hit them with attitude back, or do you explain it? Yeah.
I think you told me about that response, and I haven't used that before, but I actually think it's great. Like, I'm going to use that more often, where if people, because I've recently, like, had some nerve damage in my leg and my foot, and I'm kind of lost some movement and sensation and stuff, and people just feel entitled, if you are like on crutches or whatever,
to know what's wrong,
what
100%.
happened to you. And it's like, for me, it's probably just linked somehow to my condition, because I dislocated something that probably caused it. And it's like, do I hit them with like, oh, that's so interesting that you feel comfortable asking me that? Or like, what was the one you said like, before? It was even better. It just sounds more
why
curious.
Would you ask that?
Yeah, that's so interesting you would ask that. Like, because you're not saying anything mean, you're not judging them, but you're just pointing out, like, why would they feel comfortable with doing that? Like, it could be a personal question. Like, it could be because of a car crash. It could be because of anything.
Exactly. It is interesting how people feel entitled. I mean, even today when I was at a cafe, I reached over to grab something with my arm like this, and the woman sitting like 2 tables down, oh my goodness, what have you done to your hand? And like, it's a really good question, because I never know what's going on with my body. Everything's like not normal, that's unique, that's abnormal, I've never seen anything like this before. It's like, even to strangers, the most simple answer is, oh, they're just kind of figuring it out right now and going under some tests on that.
But the thing is, like, I can understand it, because it's like, if I see someone like out and about, like, that's got a difference, I think it's just in our human nature to like clock that.
We're
see
curious.
That, like, oh, I might need to get out of their way, they might need extra help, like, you clock it. But I think the issue happens when it's like adults that feel entitled to ask and fully stare. Even if it's like, you know, like, some people it won't be polite, like some people it won't be just curiosity, and I think you can gauge that yourself, because like, if I've had like a couple of incidents where I'm like, I swore this didn't happen to people. Like, I was like, ableism isn't that much of a thing in 2023. Like, people surely don't just like discriminate against disabled people. And there was like this young teenage boy who was like kicking at the back of my feet as I was walking down like Queen Street. And I was like, what is your problem? Like, I didn't actually say that, but I was thinking that.
That's
I was
so
just like,
bad.
yeah. And he was joking around with his mates and laughing about how he got in the way of a blind man the other day, and the blind man walked into him because obviously he couldn't see him, and he thought it was just hilarious. And it's like,
Oh, that's disgusting.
it's actually, but if people stare at me for a longer than comfortable time, and I feel like it's not just a curious like thing, like it's like they're gaping at you and they're like, wow, look at her limp, or like, what's wrong with her? I think just breaking it with a smile is a good, like, just
You
like
can just wave at them like, hi.
and then they realise like, oh god, like
Or you could turn around and go, did you want to take a picture?
I feel like that's too cheeky. Like sometimes I really want to come back with a sassy like line, but I just feel like
take a picture, it'll last longer.
I just would feel guilty. I'd feel so guilty for
But
days and
that's
days
the
after.
problem, is that we're taking the guilt of standing up for what ableism, like if somebody's acting in an ableist way and then we have to feel guilty because we might have told them off, like even that is just it's so messed up that like we bear the emotional responsibility of that and they don't have to think twice about it.
And you're just going about your day. You didn't do anything to them. You didn't ask for that attention. Like
exactly. Yeah. You don't notice how like inaccessible places are until you have to notice, you know, like until walking around with Emily who's got crutches, you just don't notice all the places that have really high steps, or like steps with no railings, or like there's
Heavy
no
door.
ramps, heavy doors, like all of these really small things that you just don't think of twice when you're able-bodied walking around, but the second that you have to notice those things, it becomes really confronting how little other people have thought about accessibility.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's just like, what is the bad thing about building things accessible? Because we were saying, like, if you're looking for a rental online or whatever, if you're looking for an accessible rental, like, there should be a filter that you can just click and easily go view it. But there's nothing like that. So I have to sift through all of these houses that could be 2 stories, but I didn't realise from the front of the listing, or there's steps.
Or it's like
Excuse
down
me.
a really steep driveway even.
Or
like
the bathroom's like tiny for people that need wheelchairs and to transfer in and out of places. Like, so it would be great if with, you know, government housing, council housing, just any new build projects, if they just made it more accessible. Because I mean, the architecture and the style of it actually looks way nicer to have like sort of a wet room with a glass roll-in shower, like.
And like,
it
you know,
wouldn't be too
flush
expensive.
indoor-outdoor flow. Like, you know, can we even get outside in this flat? Is there a lip above like where the sliding door goes? Like,
And it
it's
would
just
just be
really
easier
simple
for
things.
everyone. Like, universal design is good for everyone because it's like texting was invented for deaf people. Now everyone uses it. Like, curb cuts were invented for people with wheelchairs, but obviously if you have a suitcase, if you've got a pram, like, it's pretty
Exactly,
useful.
it's pretty handy.
Why don't we just build for that, like, in the first place? I don't get it. But
Exactly, and we were even, when we had this discussion at a previous date, we were even also going into, in terms of in the workplace, if we could set up like ergonomic setups for everyone, like the ability to sit and stand at your desk, the mouse that doesn't like make you bad wrists, like a good keyboard for better typing, like all of these things.
everyone deserves that. Everyone deserves to have their body taken care of.
Exactly, and just
take care of
because
their body.
it's an accommodation, it doesn't mean that it's a lesser than, like if you're lesser than because you need this. Like we would all benefit from ergonomics
Definitely.
being thought of in whatever we do. Like every single person benefits. I mean, what's been really fun to see recently, obviously both of us are hearing, but it's been really fun recently to see like the increase in like signing interpreters at concerts and things.
Yeah.
Like that's been really cool to see.
I think it's funny though because like sometimes people will try and make things accessible but then they won't have actually consulted anyone from the group that's requiring this specific accommodation. So like you see like just these accessibility fails online where it'll be like braille that's like just printed on somewhere, like no one can feel that. Like,
Yeah,
what's
it's
the
like
point of
that's
that? So I think it's really important that if companies, businesses, places do actually want to do the right thing, do want to make things more accessible and employ like universal design or whatever, that they actually speak to the people that would be using it and make sure that it works. And so you're not just like putting up this like tokenistic like kind of thing that doesn't actually work. It doesn't actually function for the people who want to use it. So.
Yeah, it does. It needs to be functioning for the communities that it's going to benefit.
Yeah.
It is so frustrating how often you actually do see things be designed clearly with no disabled person in mind. Like, I remember seeing one thing, and it was about, like, it must have been on TikTok, let's be honest, but it was talking about, like, it was, like, laughing at some places, like, disability ramp, and being like, how the are you expecting any person in a wheelchair to get up this ramp when the steepness is like this? It's like a freaking mountain. Like, even just that, you're like, okay, cool, you tried.
It's like a
but
roller
did somebody
coaster.
test that? Like, did anybody come out here with a wheelchair and test whether you could get up and down the ramp? Like, was there any person who looked at the angle of that and saw
I would like to see anyone do a wheelie on that, like able-bodied or non-able-bodied. Like, I think it's impossible.
Exactly.
And the thing is, like, there could be plenty of jobs out there because, like, obviously employability is a bit of an issue sometimes for people with different disabilities, and it's just like so many jobs that could actually be useful could be created if we consulted disabled people to make society more accessible. Like, there's so many good design jobs that are out there for people, and they would be contributing to something that's important. Society that's only motivated by profit and making as much money as possible and not having to spend much money, it's like it doesn't incentivize people to, you know, try to build accessibly because it might be more expensive, but there needs to be tax cuts for that. I think there needs to be like a really big reshuffle of the tax system and like tax breaks too, and what we incentivize, what we're choosing to incentivize in society, like with our money.
Well, we were saying the other day in terms of disability benefits and all of that kind of thing, you can get an allowance for being disabled if you can't work. Sure, thank you so much for the government for that. But they make it such a small amount of money so that it incentivizes you to go and work, even though, like, the entire reason that these things exist is because there's people who can't work. Can't really live a super comfortable life off of the benefit that they give you, and that's what they want you to do. They don't want it to be comfortable, because then everyone's going to go on the benefit. Everyone's just going to stop working, which is even that mindset to me is so silly, because it's like I would love to work if I could manage like a 40-hour week, whatever, but it's evident that I can't. The average person doesn't need to go to the doctor as often as a person who's disabled. Like, the amount of times I've gone to the doctor this year is unbelievable. And I didn't used to have to go to the doctor however many times a month. Yeah. And, like, that's expensive. It's so frustrating. There's so many extra costs that come with having a disability, both intellectual and physical. And then they penalise you even further by not giving you enough money to have, like, a fulfilling life.
If they're scared everyone's going to go on it, make it more rigorous, the things that you have to do in order to qualify for it.
Make the qualification for the benefit harder. Don't just make the benefit have less money. Like, because these poor people who can't work, they're not working because it's a choice. Like,
it makes no sense.
It's like these people cannot physically work anymore, or have not been able to work because of all of the disabilities they have. And then they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to penalise you and give you no money. Oh, sorry, did you want more money? How about get a job?
Yeah. It's like, oh, but I can't do it. Like,
I just can't. Aw, sucks. Have you tried something else? Oh, OnlyFans?
OnlyFans, yeah, exactly. Apparently there's like people with foot fetishes out there, like maybe I could take a little few foot pics, get some money without having to put too much out there. No.
Right. Isn't it terrible that, like, we sit here and we joke about this kind of thing, but, like, part of us is not joking at all? Because, like, you look forward at, like, okay, what am I going to be able to do? What am I going to be able to work in? What kind of job am I going to be able to get? And, like, the joke is, oh, I could sell my feet pics. But, like, why is that actually an option? Because the accommodations and, like, resources around disabilities here are so bad, you know?
Just the mental stress, because, like, I think physical conditions can be made worse, obviously, from mental stress and strain as well. So if you're, like, constantly stressing about your future and if you're going to be able to save, or what if something else happens, like, uncontrollable, what if you go to hospital again, like, all of those things put stress on you, and it's like, that's going to contribute to your health. Our earlier point of why you shouldn't ask someone why they're disabled.
Because you just do not know.
Maybe that is the worst experience of their life. Like, it's much better to maybe even say, like, I feel like people think it's awkward to be like, what is your disability? So they ask you what happened to you. But I would much rather they say, what is your disability? And I tell them about EDS than like, what happened to
your foot?
What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Like,
even just the discourse and like the way that people will ask is the wording is what's wrong? What's wrong with you? It's like, well, if we really want to dial it back, if you're born with something, I don't really believe anything's wrong. Like it's different. You can have something wrong with you without being disabled.
Yeah.
But like just the wording of people trying to ask like what's wrong when it's something that is a disability, it's like, well, nothing's wrong. I'm just differently abled than you. So
really
these are the things that I
crazy.
deal with.
This massive divide between people that qualify for ACC can get a lot of things paid for because it's through insurance, it's through people pay it to be insured at work or whatever. So there's money in it, but if you just have a chronic illness, you could also be in a wheelchair, you could also have similar issues to people that were in an accident, but there's just not that cover.
But because there wasn't like an incident that happened to you, they're like, oh, cool.
Well, there could even be an incident, like with my leg. I dislocated my leg.
It's not like you did it on purpose.
And that was like an incident or an injury, but they were like, the injury is due to a pre-existing condition, so yeah.
It's really hard. I mean, I am very lucky that this is on ACC. It very easily could have not been on ACC because I have claimed for an overuse injury. But like even just that, knowing that like there's certain things that if it happens to me, I could not get cover because of having EDS, even though it could still be an accident and it could still be an injury, but they could just turn around and be like, oh, but you wouldn't have had that happen if you didn't have this, so we're not going to cover.
Yeah.
And that is a frightening thought, to think that like just because of this underlying condition, like they do not want to provide you any care.
It's ridiculous. I think we've spent some good time on the misconceptions, on the negative stuff. Like, what is the positive stuff? What is the good stuff about having a chronic condition? What are the positives you can take out of it, or what keeps you strong? What keeps you mentally like going and makes you feel like you have a happy, healthy life? Because I feel like the other thing that comes with disability and also like chronic illnesses is people just assume like, wow, you can't have a good life now. And there are parts that are harder, but it's like, I love my life still. Like, I really love it. I live a really good life.
Yeah, and I wouldn't necessarily change anything because, like, we don't know any different. This is our experience, like we were saying earlier. This is the only thing we've known, and this is the only body that we've ever had. So, it is hard. It's definitely... Like, it's not like I would sit here and go, I'm grateful for my disability. I'm so glad that I've got it. Because
toxic positivity out
toxic
there.
positivity is a real thing. And I do not think that I should sit here and have to be all like, yeah, I'm so glad that I have it because I can do this and I can overcome this. Because it's like, in a perfect world, I wouldn't have to have any of these things. These problems wouldn't exist. Having a disability myself has made me a lot more aware of other people, and I think that it's made me a much more compassionate person.
Totally.
Because I'm able to like really try and understand more of what people are going through, understand that it's not all about what you see, like, and I think it's terrible because until you have something happen to you, a lot of the time you don't think like that. But
so true.
You know, now that I'm like in the community of it, I think that's also a beautiful part of it, is like connecting with other people who have the same thing, the human connection.
So the camera died. Oh yes, okay.
Community, human interactions.
Yeah. And I was going to say selfishly, like for me, I feel like when something horrific happens to you and you go to hospital or you have no energy anymore and you really have to consider what you want to spend your time doing, that's when I figured out like, oh my god, this is what matters to me in life. Like, doing a law degree doesn't actually matter to me in life. Like, it's about the people, it's about 100%. What I want to do.
That's a very good point.
And it just gave me such clarity. So, like, that's actually one of the benefits I've found, is, like, it gives me really good clarity on what I think is actually really important to me. And I think other people can waste a lot of time doing stuff that they're not really interested in.
100%. Oh, that's a really good point. I like that. And I think I would agree. I feel like I've also got a huge amount of like clarity in what I want for the future and where I want my life to be and like how I want to feel throughout that as well.
Yeah. It's all about what you were supposed to do.
Yeah.
And now that we're not like living the normal existence anyway, it's like supposed to, like, who cares? Like, this is what I'm doing because I have to, and so I may as well do what I want. Like,
and so much of my decisions now come from, is this going to make me happy?
Yep.
And like, yeah. And when you make decisions based on like your happiness and your well-being rather than like financial position or like status or like anything, even just people's perception of you, yeah, your life gets better in ways that change. It's like it changes so much, but it doesn't change for the worse.
Yeah,
you know,
totally.
They change for the better. Whilst it might not seem better at the time, eventually it becomes something that you're like thankful for.
Definitely.
You know.
We love a little EDS moment.
EDS baddies.
It's been really nice talking with you, and yeah, hopefully you enjoyed the video. So I think we're going to sign off here. I'm going to go back to the Disability Expo. There's a panel conversation now, so I'm going to go listen to some of the talks, and Esta's going to go.
Bye.